legal assistance for seniors, presenting on protecting your home equity, PACE loans, reverse mortgages, and other common risks. And we have Jenny Pardini with us. And Jenny, I'll send it over to you.
Great, thank you. Are we ready for me to share my screen? Okay, perfect. Go ahead and do that. And let's look at it in slideshow because it's nicer that way. So thank you for having me. There is a lot of information in this, so we're gonna cover it as best we can. And if anyone has questions and they're not in the room to ask them and they want to follow up later, they can always reach out to me at our agency. So I will just talk a little bit about the agency as we do at the beginning of every presentation. Our mission is to ensure the independence and dignity of seniors by protecting their legal rights through education, counseling, and advocacy. So we have a legal department. I'm in the community ed department, and we have individual Medicare counseling available through the HICAP program. And all of our services are free. We are a nonprofit that has been serving seniors in Alameda County since 1976. With areas of law, we do government benefits, specifically Social Security, SSI, and the Cash Assistance Program for immigrants. We don't get people enrolled, so we help people when they're already enrolled and they have a problem. They can come to us for help. We can also help with immigration issues for renewing a green card, or if someone is a legal permanent resident and they want to be a naturalized citizen, they can come for help with that as well. For elder abuse prevention, we have attorneys who can help with things like mediation, restraining orders, connecting people with appropriate services, making sure that they are in safe situations, all of the pieces around that, and then a little bit of advanced planning, which I'll mention in a moment. Kin caregiver issues refers to our guardianship program, and so that is our lowest age threshold. I mentioned that everything is free. It's all based on age. And so for kin caregiver, anyone 50 or older, if they're taking care of someone under the age of 18 and they want to be the minor's legal guardian, giving them rights with things like healthcare or school, they can become their guardian instead of having to go through a full adoption. And we help with that. We help with the paperwork and the court process part of that. For planning for the future, I always like to make sure people know we are not a full estate planning office and we don't do things like wills or trusts, but we do a presentation on advanced care directives, very important. And if someone comes in as an elder abuse client, we may be helping them fill out that document as well as durable power of attorney. For healthcare coverage, we have a health law department, and the foot in the door, the key word is Medicare. So right there, it does say Medicare and Medi-Cal, and if you have both of those, we can help. But you don't have to have Medi-Cal to use our help. If you have Medicare, should have Medicare, had Medicare and lost it for some reason, you'll probably start by talking to a HICAP counselor. If the problem needs to be elevated, they can send it to the health law department, who can then help with the legal portion. And we do have a housing department. It is a limited department. It's very case by case. Currently, there's still a moratorium on evictions. So when that ends, we will be doing eviction help. We do expect that there's going to be a big uptick when that time comes. Right now, if it's a different housing question, we're helping with tenant issues. So if someone wants to know if it's something we can help with, please give us a call. If we cannot, we will try to refer to another agency that can help. For health insurance counseling, that is the HICAP program. The big important word there is objective. So we can answer anyone's Medicare questions. We don't sell any insurance products. Our job is to be able to understand Medicare so that we can give you information so that you can make decisions. We do receive funding from the Area Agency on Aging to run the program. The counselors are registered with the state and do continuing education. They stay very up to date and knowledgeable about all things Medicare. We offer appointments mostly still phone or virtually. So we do pre-pandemic counsel at more than 30 locations. As the public health emergency is unwinding, we are planning on returning to many locations back in person as long as the counselors are comfortable with that. We provide these presentations so people know their rights and their options. And again, if it's a difficult case, the HICAP counselor will refer it to the legal department. All services are free. I'll say it again and again because we want you to come use us because we are free. So this project was born out of the Homeowner Education and Protection Project, shortened to HEPP. And I'll cover a little bit and then I'll pause to ask if there are questions. So the purpose of this project is to help senior homeowners protect the equity in their home. Model and materials came through California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform, CANNER, and this project was funded by the State Bar. In the presentation, we will talk about understanding equity and ownership. We'll look at risks and consequences. We'll also talk about PACE loans and reverse mortgages. And within reverse mortgages, there are a lot of different things we'll examine. So first of all, homes are important. There's the sentimental value of living in our home, usually for a long period of time. The memories, maybe family that's been there. There's also the financial value, the equity that you build by putting money into your home over time. And it's your shelter, right? It is literally the roof over your head. So it's pretty important. Many people have a goal of living in their home for as long as possible. They also want to be able to preserve or build that equity in the home. If it's necessary, they want to be able to then tap into that equity to be able to stay in place as they age. And most people want to be able to pass that home on to their loved one or person that they choose after they die. So a big question is, when something goes wrong, is it a bad decision or was it abuse? What is at stake? So it can mean reducing or losing equity in the home. It could be exposing your home equity to creditors. It could also mean losing the home through eviction if you're no longer on the title for some reason, and we'll talk more about some issues around that, or if the home goes into foreclosure. And it could also mean losing control of who gets the home after you die. So we like to make sure people, I think most people are probably pretty aware in the Bay Area, your home is a very valuable asset. In California, property can be owned in two ways. Joint tenancy, meaning two people can own the property. If one of them were to die, then the complete ownership would pass to the survivor. 100% of the property would then be theirs. There's also tenancy in common. In that case, if two people are owning the property and one person dies, their 50% ownership would then be able to be passed on to the person of their choice. The remaining 50% goes to their descendants, heirs. So you can never, and we'll mention this again later, but you can never pass on more than you own. If it's tenancy in common and you only own a certain percentage, that's the most you can pass on to someone. So a little math, equity is the difference between the appraised value of the home and then what you may owe on any mortgages or other debt that's listed against the home. So the math equation there, equity equals your home value minus any debt that's owed. What is title? Title is ownership interest, either full or partial, right? So it could depend on how many people own the home together. It is not a document. Title is a legal concept. So title is not actually the piece of paper, that's the deed, and we'll talk about that in a sec. Title is the concept of who owns the home and who has the right to control the use of the property. It also, title allows the person to be able to transfer their interest to any other people, like their heirs, but you can never legally transfer more than you own. So the deed is the document. It's an official legal document that shows who has title. It's used to confirm ownership if someone is trying to transfer the rights to someone. And the deed does have to be in writing. So why is this important? If the title is who owns the home and who controls the home, if you lose title, if you lose the concept of that ownership, then you have lost control of the home. And the deed is going to be the proof of who holds the title. So if there's no deed, there's no document, then there's no proof of who has title or who owns the home. Transfers, if someone does do a transfer, it is immediate and binding. There's no cooling off period. There's no 72 hours to revoke it in writing like people have as a consumer protection in other areas. If we're talking about home ownership and title, a transfer is immediate. There is a little note that if you lose the deed, in most cases, there's a county recorder who's going to have access to be able to replace it. There's usually a fee. But if the deed has gone missing, but there's, you're sure that the county should have evidence that you have the deed, you can approach them to get that replaced. How do people lose title or equity? Well, sometimes it's an actual illegal thing, like someone has stolen your identity and is pretending to be you. That could be forgery. They could forge your signature onto a deed or property transfer, or they may record a fraudulent deed by putting the title into their own name. So that's illegal. It's a crime. We'll come back to some why I'm going to define that way. We'll come back to that in a few slides. It can also be someone trying to trick you into signing a document or giving away title or possibly jeopardizing your home equity. And again, these are going to be illegal acts. It can be promising to care for you for the rest of your life if you transfer the home to them now. It could be lying about the reason that you need to transfer the title, or lying about what you're signing. Like they say, oh, I'm putting a power of attorney in front of you and sign this, and you don't realize you're even signing away the deed to the house. So that would be fraud because you're being tricked in those cases. When it comes to elder abuse, there's a concept called undue influence. And that can be that someone is pressuring you into giving away the title or jeopardizing the equity. And again, usually they're going to have some reasons that they're providing. Like if you put it into their name or add them to the title, it'll make it easier if you need to refinance, or it'll make things easier once you are dead for to be transferred to them, or that the change is in your benefit for some reason, right? Or their benefit. That by doing this, it's going to provide them security while they take care of you for the rest of your life. Well, once, and I'll say this again later, but once you do that, once it's transferred, if you completely transfer something and they have title, now they are the decision maker of how the property is used. They don't even have to take care of you. They don't have to keep you there, right? So that could be undue influence, that someone uses those tactics to pressure someone. There's something called a transfer on death deed, which we will talk also about more before the end. If that is done against your wishes, then that can be undue influence. And what that document does is transfer the property to just one person and to the exclusion of any other possible heirs. So we'll talk about how it can be a useful document before the end, but also if this is again against your wishes, this can be undue influence. So, and I'll go maybe one or two more slides and then pause in case there's questions. So what is bad decision making? Bad decision making could just be something that you do that accidentally gives away title or jeopardizes the equity through maybe an uninformed decision or not realizing the consequence. It could be using your home equity as a bank, taking out loans against the equity for things that you don't absolutely need, failing to maintain your home or pay back any debt that you've incurred against the equity in the home. And it could also mean putting someone else's name on the title without fully understanding the consequences. So, who can protect you? If it's fraud, if it's undue influence, if someone has stolen your identity and they're forging documents, those are crimes. Okay, the police or the district attorney can protect you. You should report any suspected crime to police or law enforcement in your jurisdiction. So here that would be the Alameda County District Attorney in most cases. You could also call to report something to the police, but for a lot of the things we talked about, the DA is going to want to look at the case. They do have a very high burden of proof. So they're going to want clear evidence of how you were influenced or that someone has stolen your identity to show that beyond a reasonable doubt, there was a crime that occurred. So they cannot protect you if someone just makes an uninformed or bad decision. In that case, there's not really anything they can do, and it can be very difficult and costly to rectify any botched, right? Anything that was done wrong. Estate planning that does not protect the equity in the home. So I'm going to pause and just check because I always close all your little pictures when I'm talking so I can see the slides. I don't see anything in the chat. If anyone does have a question at any point, feel free to put it in that chat, because if you are like me, 2 slides later, you won't remember what the question was. So the chat's a really great way to help if anyone does have a question. We can also always unmute if there are any questions. We're okay? Okay, I'll keep going. I know I'm going to talk at you a lot right now, so stop me if we need to. So your best protection is to be proactive and informed. If you know how to protect your title and your equity, it's going to allow you to age in place. You can pass on your home according to your wishes. So we just recommend you be careful of signing or agreeing to anything. It is absolutely okay to say no or to seek legal counsel before you sign anything. Some challenges of maintaining home ownership as we age include mobility impairment or declining health, lack of funds to keep up the home, or concerns about Medi-Cal recovery and leaving your home to your loved ones. And I will talk more in depth about Medi-Cal recovery because that's always a big question. When it comes to mobility or health challenges, you want to explore options for in-home care. Is there an in-home family caregiver who could come and help with things that need to be done around the house? Does the person qualify for in-home support services? If they qualify for Medi-Cal, they can have their doctor authorize those hours to get in-home support. You can also consider modifications like installing ramps, grab bars, having an organization come out and do a fall prevention assessment. And it's a really good idea to put some estate planning in place, like a power of attorney or an advanced healthcare directive, just to cover some of the basics in case the person is unable to make decisions for themselves at any point. If it comes to a lack of financial resources, and it's about using equity to try and repair something on the home, you're going to want to, first of all, identify what the money is for. Like, why would you be tapping into your equity? If it's to repair the roof, okay, that might be a really valid reason to use equity. If it's to go on a cruise, it's your equity to use how you want, but you really have to examine, is this essential? Will it be something that I can keep paying and earn back later? Is this going to cause really important or like significant strain on my finances? So really exploring what you're taking money or using equity for. And then consider alternative sources other than the home equity, perhaps a loan from a family member or friend. Some cities do have programs for older adults that help them take out a loan for home repair, usually very low cost, low interest. And there are local nonprofits who might be able to provide free or low cost home repair or things like grab bars or ramps. So Habitat for Humanity East Bay Silicon Valley offers help through their Renew AC. You can go to their website to learn more if you have questions about what they can do. You can also call them, and there's an email address there as well. These will be available. The slides are available, so you don't have to worry about capturing all this right now. You'll have access to all of that information. I'm going to transition into PACE loans, and then I'll take another pause after the PACE loans. So there's a few slides on.
Real quick, Jenny.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing is folks can also reach out to Tim Fisher. The city of Oakland can help out with some of those. They're partnering with Habitat for Humanity to get the occupational therapist to come out to the houses. So if anyone has questions or wants to get those resources, in addition to the slides, they can also reach out to Tim, who's our information and assistance specialist.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to make everyone small again. Okay. So I'll talk about PACE for a few slides. And these are property assessed clean energy programs, but what they really are is a loan. It's a state program that allows you to do projects that are energy efficient and then you pay it back through special assessments on your tax bill. PACE loans are operated and administered in California, there are 3 programs that can happen through the CA Hero program, Y-Green, and California First. So what happens is that the city or the county creates a land secured financing district or some other legal mechanism that the loan's going to be secured with. Then the property owner voluntarily signs up for the loan to do the project. Then the person lending the money is going to fund the project. And then in the end, the property owner will repay whatever funds that they used for the project through their property tax bill. And that can be repaid long over time, so up to 20 years. Before doing any of these projects, we like to identify some of the pitfalls, or we'll start with the conflict of interest. It's possible that the loan is being arranged through a contractor who might have an incentive to promote doing an expensive upgrade. So it can be convenient, but the contractor doesn't know your personal finances or what you can afford. So while they can help you potentially get the loan to do the project, you have to think about, if I do this, even if I'm repaying it over time through my property taxes, can I afford that higher amount that I'll now be paying. Most service providers are honest, and it's ultimately up to the buyer, the person who owns the home or is doing the project, to make the smart decision. But some contractors may make misleading statements because it could get them that higher paying job or that higher paying project. Also, they are going to be paid for the job that they're doing, but they also may get additional referral fees from the lender if they arrange the project funding. So there is a potential conflict of interest there. There's also payment shock that can happen. Even if you're repaying it over an extended period of time, making payments could be a burden. If someone is on a fixed income, lots of costs have been going up, they're going to have to make sure that they can afford any higher payment to those property taxes that are going to happen. So the property assessments are often paid only once or twice a year, and it can be a very surprising expense when that loan is now tied to those property taxes. If you are making mortgage payments and your home loan servicer pays your property taxes through an escrow account. So in this case, this is someone who when they pay their lender every month, they're paying their mortgage payment plus things that go into this escrow account to pay property taxes and often homeowners insurance, and it all gets paid out of the escrow account. Many people who are doing that have those payments split monthly. So instead of paying their property tax up front once or twice a year, it's split monthly and goes into that escrow account. And so if someone is doing that and this loan, the PACE loan, gets tacked on to their property taxes, they may be able to at least break those payments into smaller chunks that they're paying to their mortgage payment every month. So there are some other things to think about, some more pitfalls. There's the interest cost. The PACE funding is pretty easy to qualify for, but the interest rates are not always the lowest or the best possible interest rate, depending on someone's credit. And so a person may want to look into what's called for short, a HELOC, a home equity loan or line of credit, especially if you have good credit, because you may be able to just use that. It's like borrowing against your own equity. You can repay yourself back into your equity. The interest is going to be very small. So that can be a really great way to do a project if you feel like you really need to do the project, and you may get a better deal. The cost and benefit is important to think about as well, because the easy approval for the PACE loan may not be worth it. You're going to do this project, and then these loans could be for someone who really can't afford that expensive loan. And they're doing a project like replacing the window, which might add value to the home and maybe will save on some heating bills or cooling bills. But you're really going to have to assess, for what I'm spending up front for getting this loan and making repayments, am I really going to be adding value or saving money? If it's not substantial, it may not be worth making the higher tax payment. And then there's also the risk of foreclosure. And this is really important. When you go into a PACE loan, it's going to become secured by your home, meaning it's going to be put in like first place ahead of mortgage payments and other things. And so if you don't make that payment, your home could go into foreclosure. In many cases, it's in that first position. And so other types of loans like the home equity loan or the line of credit are not put in that position. And then if you miss a payment, it wouldn't put you at risk of foreclosure. Okay, before we start reverse mortgages, let me just pop in again and say, any questions on PACE loans? Nope. Okay. Back to tiny. Okay, reverse mortgages. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things related to these. First of all, what are they? It's available. Excuse me. I'm going to mute so I can cough without coughing in your ear. All right, at least now it just didn't sound bad. It only didn't look pretty. So it's a loan for someone 62 or older to borrow against equity in their home. It becomes due either when that person dies or moves out of the home. And that could be like moving into long-term care, right? If the person has to leave their home to go get care, the mortgage could become due, or the reverse mortgage payment could need to be paid in full. If the homeowner can't meet financial obligations of the loan, such as maintaining the home, right, keeping keeping it safe, keeping it clean, keeping the roof intact, making sure that, you're not getting mold or termites, like things like that for maintaining. They also have to make sure they're paying their property taxes and paying for homeowners insurance. If those conditions are not being met, the loan will go into default and the home could go into foreclosure. And the statistic between 2009 and 2016 was that of people who got these reverse mortgages, over 18% were expected to go into default. And that's according to HUD. These sales pitches are good. They want you to get a reverse mortgage. They're going to say, you can pay off your debts. You can make, gifts to your grandkids, like when they graduate, or you can remodel your home. Haven't you always wanted that new bathroom, new kitchen, right? They're going to really entice you into ways that you can use this equity from your home to do these things. Take your dream vacation, get into the stock market and see if you can play around and make money. We'll talk about that. And they tell you it's your money to play with, right? You put it into your home all these years. Your value of your home's gone up over time. Like, you've earned this, go ahead and use your money. It is your money. It's totally yours to make your decisions with, but these can be really misleading. If you get into these loans, again, you really have to think about property taxes, your homeowner's insurance, and maintenance of the home. Because if you fail to meet any of those obligations, it goes into default and you could be foreclosed upon and lose your home. When considering a reverse mortgage, we want you to think about these questions. What would happen to other people in your home if you were to die or have to move out? Because if there are other people living in the home and their name is not on that reverse mortgage, then they would be forced out of the home if the home had to be sold upon your death. Or if the loan had to be repaid, because the home may have to be sold to repay the loan. What will happen if you default on that reverse mortgage? We're going to answer these with some slides in more detail. Have you explored other options? Are you intending to use the reverse mortgage to purchase a financial product, right, like playing in the stock market? Or what would be the impact of reverse mortgages on your eligibility for any government assistance programs? So there are some Canner fact sheets available. The website is there. Canner is an excellent resource with all of these questions. So let's start with that first one. Everyone should be asking, who is currently living in the home with them and what would become of them? Is it a spouse? If it's a spouse and you're going to go into that reverse mortgage, make sure both your names are on there. If you're leaving one person off because they have bad credit and they would keep you from qualifying, then if only the one person is on the reverse mortgage and something happens to them, that other person could be forced to leave the home. Have you discussed your plan with everyone living in the household? If you have multi-generational household and you have, the older person securing the reverse mortgage, but something happens and it's not being repaid and the home goes into foreclosure, all those generations are going to be forced out of the home. If you default, would you be able to find the funds to catch up and stay current with your taxes, insurance, and maintenance? Because remember, those are the three really important things about keeping the home. And if you were to get foreclosed on, would you have enough money to finance either a new home, at least an apartment, or some sort of assisted living? So a really good resource for options other than entering a reverse mortgage is Keep Your Home California. Their website's there. They can give guidance on unemployment mortgages, mortgage reinstatement assistance, principal reduction programs, and reverse mortgage assistance programs for people who may have already entered a reverse mortgage. One tool could be an interfamily loan. The benefit is that it preserves the equity in the home. There's flexibility around the terms of the loan, and it can accommodate all kinds of family contributions, including in-kind care contracts. So there's a tool here from the HEPP toolkit where people can look at reverse mortgage suitability worksheets, family equity lending guides, and sample secured promissory note agreements for entering an interfamily loan. So I'm going to just talk a little bit more about that. What is an in-kind care contract? Well, let's say you've got an older person and they have a couple of adult children. And one of the adult children is able to help with the portion of the loan, maybe that's going to help with the upkeep or put on that new roof. And that's their financial contribution that they can afford to make. But eventually, right, they would want to receive their through inheritance or through repayment or whatever, they'd want to receive money back that they invest. Well, great. They have the finances to do that. What else happens sometimes? A person might be trying to stay in their home and they need assistance, and they have another adult child who can't necessarily afford to help with those financial things, but they can come in and spend their time, energy, and emotional effort helping their parent to be able to do whatever they need to do to stay home, in the home that they have built and not have to leave. So that would be an in-kind care contract saying, we're going to recognize the value of the work that that person is doing with their time and their effort, and acknowledge a value to that as well, so that, when the time comes, you don't have one child saying, well, I put in all the money, so therefore I deserve more back from the value of the home. When you have another person saying, hey, like, I didn't go out, I wasn't earning money in all those hours I was providing care. So it's a good way to acknowledge all contributions. So I just like to talk about that. Okay, I know I made a face at financial products earlier. I know I'm not allowed to tell you what to do. It's your money. But the debt of a reverse mortgage loan will more than likely outpace any interest generated by a legitimate financial product. So if someone's promising you great return rates that are like not consistent with typical financial products, you probably don't want to put your money in that. It sounds very risky. It could be a scam. It could be fraud. Be very careful of those things. If you are even putting it into a legitimate financial product, right? That bottom chart is going to show you that the balance of your reverse mortgage and any interest due with it is going to get high very quickly compared to any investment return you're going to get from most financial products. So you also need to think about how liquid is that financial product you're considering. If you're putting your money in, is it committed for a certain amount of time? What happens if you pull it out before that time? Are you going to lose money? What happens if you need to replace your roof and you need to pull that money out to do that? I know I keep talking about the roof, but it's just a very clear example of a project that can happen. Especially as we've just gone through a nice rainy season. So, just a little side story. I had to replace my roof a couple of years ago, and now every time it rains, my wife and I are like, sound of money well spent, because there's no leaking in our house, which is how we knew we had to replace our roof the first time. So I think that's why I'm so tied to the roof. Okay. And then the last question I think we had asked was about government programs you may qualify for. And one thing is long-term care. So if you move into a nursing home for an extended period of time, the reverse mortgage becomes due, and your house may have to be sold in order to pay off the loan, what's due back to the reverse mortgage. Well, your house, as we said at the beginning, is a very valuable asset. So most likely, if you had to sell your home, some money is going to go back to repaying that reverse mortgage, and you're going to be left with money in the bank as well. Proceeds from the sale of the home could disqualify you from getting Medi-Cal. When you apply for Medi-Cal, the value of your home is not considered as long as it's your one primary residence. Even if you're going to be moving into long-term care, as long as the goal is that if you were able to return to home at any point, that would be the plan, then that value, that entire value of your home, is not counted in your assets for Medi-Cal. But if that's money because you sold your home because you had to repay the reverse mortgage and now you've got money sitting in the bank, money sitting in the bank is going to be considered as an asset when qualifying for Medi-Cal. If a Medi-Cal recipient dies, the state can seek repayment for the cost of certain services related to long-term care. It does not apply to Medi-Cal covering basic healthcare coverage. So like someone who has Medicare and Medi-Cal who is not in long-term care does not have to worry about a state recovery. This is only in the case of long-term care. But when someone passes away and has been living in long-term care that Medi-Cal is paying for, it is possible that the state could ask for repayment from any services that they covered. A reverse mortgage loan interferes with someone's ability to transfer the home and avoid Medi-Cal recovery claims. Medi-Cal estate recovery, as of January 2017, is only again applied to long-term care situations. So it's those receiving nursing home or home and community-based services, and then their estate could be subject to recovery. Why could be? Because there's stuff that's exempt. Property that is exempt from Medi-Cal estate recovery includes property that is transferred prior to the death of the person, property that is not subject to probate. For example, if the property is part of a trust, then it cannot go through Medi-Cal estate recovery. And I say that I am not an estate planning expert, and there are various kinds of trusts. So when I say that, I should say property not subject to probate because it's in the right kind of trust to avoid probate. So you need to talk to an estate planning attorney if you have questions about that. We don't do that here. If it is a homestead of modest value, meaning the fair market value of the home, if it were to be sold, would be 50% or less of an average home in the county. So probably not a lot of homes in our area. We live in a pretty expensive area. If a home were really run down, it might fit that, but it's hard to say because people are pretty eager to get property in this area and will far overpay for things. So just not one that's used a ton in this area. Also, life insurance is exempt because the person who passes away doesn't actually benefit from their life insurance. It's the beneficiaries who do. So that's not part of estate recovery. They can't ask for that life insurance payout from the person who is the beneficiary to repay anything from Medi-Cal. Also retirement accounts, and for the same reason, usually someone else is listed as the beneficiary. So when the person dies, their retirement account would then go to their beneficiary and not be something that Medi-Cal could do estate recovery from. Other exemptions. If the person is receiving Medi-Cal to pay for their long-term care, and they pass away, but they are survived by a spouse, registered domestic partner, or a child, a minor child, or a child who's disabled. So that could be someone also not necessarily a minor, but if they're a dependent adult. In any of those four circumstances, then estate recovery is prohibited and forever barred, meaning even then, if the spouse were to pass away, the state cannot come back and then say, well, before that spouse passed away, we paid for the other spouse's long-term care. So now we want, it's barred. They cannot do that, right? It's only if the person who passes away does not have a surviving spouse living in the home or domestic partner, they don't have that minor child or disabled child living in the home. Then it could be, and then again, all the stuff on the previous slide, like probate. So there's a lot of rules. It can be very confusing and very messy. If you have questions, you are always welcome to contact me for clarity. However, California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform are the experts, and they have free attorney consultations if you need to call them and ask them questions. They're going to be on the resource list here at the end. They're an excellent resource for any questions about Medi-Cal and Medi-Cal estate recovery. And I promised we would come back to transfer on death deeds. It is a way for a homeowner to transfer upon their death a residential property to the named beneficiary. It is pretty simple to use. It's less expensive than creating a trust. It does eliminate the time and expense of going through probate. It remains revocable up until the time that the person actually passes away. And it does simplify that transfer process at death. So there's a lot of reasons someone may want to consider doing this instead of full scope estate planning like some of the other things we've talked about. But there are no contingent beneficiaries allowed. You have to, whoever is named is who the beneficiary is. Well, let's say terrible thing happens and you are in some sort of accident along with the person that was your named beneficiary and both of you pass away. Now the house is back to going through probate. There's also no other estate plan in place. So a lot of things can happen there. It could encourage elder abuse. It also doesn't offer protection from creditors. It is restricted to certain types of residential properties. It does have to be completed properly or the transfer is completely voided. And so a botched form could end up back in probate court. And then there could be a Medi-Cal estate recovery claim, right, depending on a bunch of the other circumstances that we talked about. So I did promise you some additional resources. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a great resource. Homeowner Education Protection Project available at canner.org. Excellent resource. You can also, like I said, call Canner and ask questions. You can ask to talk to an attorney. There's no fee for that. And HERA, the Housing and Economic Rights Advocates, is another really excellent resource for things related to housing questions or issues. You can contact us at Legal Assistance for Seniors. Our phone number is there, our office address is there. However, we have not fully reopened to the public yet, so please call, don't just show up. We do only see people by appointment here in the office. If you'd like to talk to a HICAP counselor about any Medicare question, you can call this other number here at 510-839-0393. That puts you in with the HICAP schedulers who can get you an appointment with the counselor who can answer all of your Medicare questions. So I think those are all my slides. I know I just, again, talked a lot and probably pretty quickly because I have a bad habit of talking fast. So if there are questions, if anyone needs me to go back to something, please let me know. Don't see anything in the chat.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
I just came into the meeting and I thought this was a meeting regarding home equity.
Yes, I did a whole section on home equity. The good news is that it's recorded. So they'll be able to share that with you. And if you have any questions upon reviewing it, you're welcome to contact me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, where would I find the recording?
So it'll be completed after today's session, and then Jessie will have a copy that I'll let her answer it, but she'll have a copy that she's going to be able to send out.
Lovely. Thank you.
Did you RSVP for this event and get an email from me with the Zoom link?
I got a Zoom link. I talked to a man in the office yesterday about the meeting, and he told me that he took my information to send me the link.
And did you get the link email today?
I got it, yes. And
Fantastic.
I just got back in. Do it. Mm-hmm.
Great. So that means you'll get the follow-up email. And if you don't get the follow-up email tomorrow, feel free to call us and ask us about it.
And you'll have the recording and you'll also have a copy of the slides. So you're welcome to look over it or go back and listen to me. And if you have questions, just reach out anytime.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. I know
Jenny,
we cover a lot in this presentation.
Jenny, I wanted to make a comment and maybe sort of ask a semi-question. I have a client who comes in to see me whose mother had a reverse mortgage, and the house went back to the bank after she died, and this woman is now really scrambling to find housing. So it really sounds like reverse mortgage is a cautionary tale, and it doesn't often have very positive outcomes.
Yes, so as part of I always try to be diplomatic. As part of the project, I'm not here to bash all reverse mortgages. It might be the right thing for someone depending on all of the circumstances relevant to them. But for a lot of people, it is really cautionary because they're going to try and tell you this great thing when most people don't understand the potential repercussions or things that can happen after after they're gone that are going to be happening to family members. And so estate planning can feel expensive up front, but it can also be really helpful in the long run. My recommendation would be to look into that first, and then maybe to look at some of these other tools like the interfamily loans, or of course, making sure that whatever you're actually taking the money for is essential. Just a lot of things to consider.
And our next presentation will be from Bonnie Harris Hayden on estate planning. She works for the American Heart Association. And so they partner with freewill.org, which is a website where you can create a will. And so she'll talk about how to do that and provide other resources for you, how you can get a will and a paper and a trust going all on paper and get it notarized for a reasonable amount.
Great. Yeah, that's going to be a really good one.
Regarding that cautionary tale, I heard a report on radio about a elderly parent who lived some distance from the children who were going to inherit and who had dementia. unbeknownst to her daughter. And so she had done the reverse mortgage with not being in her quote right mind. And so by the time the daughter realized what the situation was, it was too late to keep control of the house. The house was gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for
That's a
those
really
who
hard
live,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
live
And that can
some,
happen because determining capacity is like very sensitive. Most people don't want to
yeah,
say, hey, I don't think I'm making great decisions anymore. I don't
right.
really understand the decisions I'm making. Like, so that can be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's the last of the slides. So I'm happy to stay on if there are any more questions, but if not, our contact info is there. The 510-832-3040 is our main line. And if anyone does need to reach me, calling that line is the best way. You can either ask for me by name, Jenny Pardini, or extension 323 if you have any questions.